Embarrassingly dumb ways people died. Darwin Award winners. Part 20 by Be Amazed. Let's see how amazed I am by these. By the way, these people met Jesus. Let's go. Also, I think a lot of these might not look good on a tombstone.
From the flat earther whose experiment left him fatally fried, to the streamer who ate so much she literally burst. In this extra special episode, we're chronicling our favorite submissions from you, the fans. What on flat earth? If there's a group of humans for whom it's not
Flat earthers make no sense. Genuinely, flat earthers make no sense. And super earthless also make no sense. How can you think that like the continents we live on is surrounded by an ice wall, and then there's separate other holes? Like, this doesn't make sense where there's new continents. Nothing makes sense. Nothing. These make no sense. None of them.
a massive surprise that they'd be stupid enough to end up featured on a video like this. It would have to be flat earthers. Believing that the earth isn't spherical but rather somehow a flat disc, these folks gather in their masses on the internet and IRL, relentlessly trying to prove their belief. But as we're about to see, one flat earther's attempted demonstration didn't exactly go as expected. This story takes place in Canada.
Imagine dying while trying to prove that the earth is flat. Imagine dying while trying to prove the earth is flat. That would be... You would go to hell alone for that.
2012. Thomas's neighbor, who for simplicity's sake we'll call Bill, was an out and proud flat earther. Being from Saskatchewan, an area with a relatively flat landscape, only perpetuated Bill's belief. So one day, in a bid to prove the flat earth theory once and for all, Bozo Bill took to the outdoors with his camera attached to a long metal pole, in what I'm assuming was an attempt to get an aerial view of...
I think this is just natural selection at its best. It truly is peak natural selection at this point. I think he's going to say the guy who tried to rocket himself without an intelligent landing plan. Nah, he's gonna use the pole with the camera on and touch the power stuff here.
Like the entire freaking earth? Anyway, with his totally foolproof genius experiment, Bill got to waving his huge camera apparatus in the air, but the pole was too long and heavy to balance, so it soon began to fall down. And well, a little word of advice for anyone planning to wave a huge metal stick in the air: it's best to make sure your surroundings are clear of power lines with live electrical wires. Yep, as you can imagine, Bill's pole failed to defy the laws of gravity as it crashed down into a nearby power line, frying Bill medium to well done with a deadly dose of electricity. But hey, at least he died a hero serving a totally worthwhile cause, right? Right?
Maybe he proved it. He did not. You know, people died in the Middle Ages saying the world isn't flat, right? Yeah, but things have changed now. Things have changed. Things are not the same anymore.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
Crazy in love. They say that love is blind and can make you do crazy things. And speaking as someone who recently got married online to a so-called Nigerian princess and was scammed out of my life savings, I'd have to agree. Anyway, our next Darwin Award winner is a woman who was so crazy in love that it caused her own demise. The year was 2010, and a couple who for simplicity we'll call Stephanie and Bill were in the midst of a blazing argument. As tempers reached a fever...
They were fighting, okay. Yeah, we're doing that Inazuma video after this one, and then I still have a horse video as well.
Pitch 49-year-old Stephanie dramatically stormed out of Bill's California house. Soon enough, however, Stephanie had calmed down and returned to Bill's with the hopes of kissing and making up, unaware that he'd left the house in the meantime. Banging on his door to no avail, Stephanie presumed Bill was still upset and was ignoring her, which is when she hatched a plan that would sadly spell her own demise. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd like to just point out that Stephanie was a literal doctor.
Well, if somebody knows how to take out a human, it must be doctors. There was a dude who died, buried under a bunch of coats thrown by audience. That's crazy. What do you mean things have changed? Aren't we burning witches no more? Funny enough, people go be like, oh, they were burning witches in the Middle Ages. Fun fact, they didn't do that. There were no witches burned in the Middle Ages. They were burned in the modern age. Time-wise. Or the period that we consider modern. The more you know. It's a false information that witches were burned in the Middle Ages.
Someone you'd expect to be intelligent and sensibly rationalize situations. And yet, even with a medical degree, the maddening power of love made Stephanie think it'd be a great idea to break into Bill's house via chimney. Yep, climbing up.
This ain't Christmas. It's too early for Christmas. You're not Santa.
To his roof with a ladder, Dr. Stephanie plopped herself down the chimney and shimmied her way down feet first. Though shimmy as she might, it wasn't long before she reached the end of her life's proverbial tunnel as the chimney narrowed near its base. Working against gravity, Stephanie's chest quickly became so compressed that she was unable to breathe and she soon succumbed to suffocation. Of course, with no one suspecting that ex-Dr. Stephanie was wedged in the chimney, she remained there.
That would be smelly. It's gonna be smelly. Huh, interesting.
There for 3 days. That was until Bill began noticing a pungent stench and leaking liquid, alerting him to the real-life horror story that lurked in his chimney. Pretty horrifying, right? Just desserts. Originally gaining popularity in South Korea around the early 2010s, mukbang is a popular internet trend where people film themselves eating food.
Yeah, but here's a fun fact. They eat that food, but usually it doesn't stay in there. They usually vomit it out afterwards because, you know, they would get fat.
For an online audience. But while mukbanging might seem like harmless, if not slightly unusual fun, believe it or not, it can actually be deadly, because it often involves indulging in copious amounts of food. Our next Darwin Award goes to a popular Chinese influencer who made her name from her extreme mukbang videos, regularly spending.
You're gonna explode, aren't you? That was the lady he mentioned earlier, the exploding one. During the Middle Ages, there were other torches like the golden bowl or sawing you down. Yep. There was a dude who died from his stag of death by gooning. So we can consider this dying because he gooned too much. He gooned too close to the shelf, to the upper shelf.
10 hours a day, eating up to a whopping 22 pounds of food in just one session. It began as an innocent way of supplementing her waitressing career with ad revenue and donations from viewers. However, upon realizing that she could make big bucks from just eating, she quit her job and became a full-time feaster. So much so, it wasn't long before she was morbidly obese, weighing in at a staggering 660 pounds. And with that, it's
300 kilograms. That's heavy.
no surprise that this heavyweight champ began facing multiple obesity-related hospitalizations. Despite the toll that mukbanging had taken on her body, plus her family's growing concerns, nothing could stop her from banqueting on thousands of calories in the name of content creation. But then, one evening in 2024, 10 hours into a streamed feast featuring heaps of seafood, fried chicken.
Kind of funny how the animation style's just completely changed. No shelf, just a massive stack of doujins. Well, that doesn't look good on the tombstone either. Died by gooning. killed by his own doujins.
Chicken and much more, she suddenly dropped dead in front of her viewers. Autopsies revealed that the 24-year-old had a severely deformed stomach filled with undigested food. It's believed that her stomach had burst, spilling its contents into her abdomen. Good God! Horrifying. And sure, I'd love to be sympathetic, but this was an entirely self-inflicted demise. Even more selfish when you consider how this must have...
Again, natural selection. Natural selection. And also, I have to say this. Nobody tried to... I've always questioned this. Nobody tries to stop these people. I would put them in solitary confinement with only salad.
Affected her family. I'd argue that's one of the dumber Darwin Award winners of all time, but if you'd like to judge for yourself by comparison, I've got something for you. Head over to the BMA's merch store or click the on-screen link to check out this natural selection and action poster we recently released. The hilariously detailed original illustration features 75 of my favorite stories from my Darwin Award series over the years. Brimming with hidden surprises, you'll find something new every time you look at it. And why stop there? With collectibles and even apparel, there's something for everyone on my merch store. Please, buy my stuff. I can't bear living in my mom's basement any longer.
Let's not buy his stuff. Your mom be like, go get a job.
Unbelievable. Made famous for being the first man to go...
Is this... Did this woman made the orange peel test? And he didn't peel the orange, and she killed him.
Over Niagara Falls in a barrel back in 1911, Bobby Leach was a circus performer / daredevil who was known to get up to all kinds of dangerous antics. Having willingly put himself through some of the most life-threatening situations and surviving, he died in one of the most unexpected and pedestrian ways. His demise astonishingly came from slipping on an orange peel. He tumbled...
That's a horrible way to die. What the fuck? Well, yo, Mario Kart, I have an idea. For like an April Fool's event based on this. Replace all the bananas with oranges.
On the killer's citrus skin while walking on a street in New Zealand, breaking his leg. The ensuing injury led to an infection in his leg, which became so severe he eventually had to have his leg amputated. But it was Bobby's final curtain call when he died just a few days after the amputation. His body proved too weakened by the ordeal to survive. Doctors suggested previous leg injuries while performing stunts had weakened the leg, meaning his daredevil lifestyle was likely responsible for his demise, albeit indirectly. Just proves that you can be the toughest daredevil in the world and still be taken out by something as insignificant as an orange peel. Beware, folks, there's a killer in your lunchbox.
Careful. When eating oranges, they're evil. Not even a banana peel, not even a banana peel. Hi Diagonal, how you doing? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing great, How are you?
Eye of the Tiger. We humans may be at the top of the food chain, but that doesn't mean we're invincible. One-on-one with the most lethal predators of the world, that food chain often gets rearranged. In 1997, in the far eastern Russian wilderness, a Russian hunter attempted to shoot a tiger dead while it was feeding on a kill. But
the tiger wasn't dead. The tiger went after him. Sorry, you're not Ryuga. You cannot stare down a tiger.
He only managed to injure it. However, since the tiger had fled, the hunter decided to steal some of the tiger's kill. Spoiler alert, wrong decision, buddy. Injured and now hungry, the tiger was understandably feeling pretty vengeful. And with that, it traced the hunter's scent all the way back to his cabin where it tore apart anything with his scent on it. Sure enough, when the hunter eventually returned to his now dilapidated cabin, he was confronted with a hungry guest licking its lips. Sparing absolutely no mercy, the tiger ravenously dragged the hunter out to the bushes and made a hearty feast of him.
That's not the worst way to die. That's not the worst way to die. I'd rather get eaten by a tiger than, you know, get grilled by a power pole while trying to prove that the earth is flat, slipping on an orange peel, or overeating.
Needless to say, the instant karma tale hit the papers when the hunter's bones were later uncovered and this astonishing story was pieced together. Moral of the story, don't steal a tiger's food or else you yourself will become the food.
Or make sure you end the tiger.
Cash Crash. The drive-thru is one of humanity's greatest achievements. And yet, despite how simple it is, one idiot somehow managed to meet her fate at one. While at the drive-thru at a coffee shop, the woman in question was paying with cash when she reached through her car window to hand over the money. She accidentally dropped it. No biggie, I'm sure she thought as she opened the car door to retrieve the cash. However, in doing so, her foot accidentally slipped from the automatic vehicle's brake pedal, dramatically jolting her car forward. Unfortunately, this led her car door to collide with a pole up ahead at speed, slamming the door against her body and crushing her into sweet oblivion.
Well, that's rough. That's rough. That's rough, buddy. Well, she did. Not fair. Rhaegar was a Targaryen. Anyways.
Dang, perils of driving automatic. Let this be a lesson to always use your handbrake and never drive before having coffee. Highway to Hell. Ah, don't you just love road trips? Snacks, songs, car games, the beautiful scenery, your friend.
And car accidents. Never been on a trip with a car, to be fair. That much. Like, not in that way, at least. Not a road trip.
Flying out of the car to certain doom. Wait, what? Yep, turns out road trips aren't all that fun when you and your pals are idiots. Back in 2020, a college student who we'll call Becky and her pals were driving through the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in Tennessee. Being on the passenger side, Becky strangely thought it might be a good idea to perch herself on the...
Are you 10? Because you're the only 10 I see.
window with her legs in the car and her hands holding on to the roof rack. Because you know what could possibly go wrong. With the wind blowing through her hair as they cruise down the road.
She's gonna fall out, or she's gonna get touch a pole or something like that. I'm doing alright. I have the day off again. However, tomorrow is gonna be very unpleasant as far as work. It rained yesterday. It is raining today. I have to pick up inflatables tomorrow. Yeah, get a boat at this point.
Road, Becky had not a care in the world. That was until the roof rack, which she was hanging on to, detached from the car and took her with it. Gone with the wind, it was bye-bye Becky as she hit the ground at speed.
That could be a song. Bye-bye Becky. That could be a song that's like running in the radio. That's like that's a song title for sure.
Although it was brainless Becky's stupid behavior that led to her demise, you've got to question the intelligence of her pals. Like, who the hell allows their friend to flail their body out of a moving car? It's concerning that these people walk, or rather drive, among us. Train pain. How is it that that old saying goes again? Don't stand in front of trains because you will probably get hit and die? Alright, so maybe that isn't an actual saying, but as we'll soon see, it's probably some good advice to heed. In 2024, a 29-year-old Mexican woman was admiring a vintage steam train known as the Empress that was passing through the town of Napola de Villagrán, northwest of Mexico City. In fact, she was so loco for the locomotive that she wanted to snap a selfie with it, seeing it as a good...
Oh my god, this bitch is stupid. This bitch is so stupid. Who goes in front of a train to take a picture? I can't do this anymore.
Idea to get right up next to the train track with her phone in the air and her back turned to the oncoming train. In a totally not at all shocking turn of events, the train turned out to be considerably wider than the tracks and struck the woman square in the head, sending her on a one-way trip to the afterlife. Ironically, it was reported that she was telling children to stay a safe distance away from the train beforehand, some advice she might have done well to listen to herself. I certainly hope the killer selfie was worth it. Don't play with fire. Up next, we have a story from one of my viewers, Jay Schurenborn, who actually encountered this Darwin Award winner in real life. Not long after graduating high school, something pretty insane happened to one of Jay's ex-classmates, who we'll call Tony. You see, Tony was known to be a bit of a bad egg. So much so, one day he decided that he would take up the art of arson, that is, burning things.
If you commit arson, at least don't burn yourself while doing it, bro. How can you die of the same crime that you commit? That is insane. The boat won't help. It will sink under the weight. Get a good boat.
Trouble is, this fire-starting fiend had no actual experience in starting fires and, as we'll soon see, was also clearly deficient in brain cells. To cure his fiery appetite, Tony schemed to go up to the 3rd floor of an abandoned house and start a fire, with the hopes of burning it to the ground. But here's a tidbit of advice for you. If you're gonna start a house fire, you'd better have an escape route in mind. Yep, after starting the fire, things rapidly got out of control. Very quickly, Tony found himself surrounded by flames which blocked all escape routes and soon engulfed him, burning him to a deathly crisp. Well, for this...
But why wasn't he able to get... Let me get this straight, right? Does that mean he started the fire in front of his escape?
For the sake of society, I guess it's for the best. His career as an arsonist was short-lived. The Three Stooges. Now, if you're a regular viewer of this series, you may have noticed that a common theme amongst the Darwin Award winners is that many fail to have a basic comprehension of electricity. And, more importantly, its deathly dangers. Occurring sometime during the late 60s, one day a warehouse worker suddenly noticed the smell of smoke. Understandably, fearing there may be a warehouse fire, the investigating worker soon found himself confronted with a...
Is he just gonna touch it or something? Karma. Instant karma.
A peculiar scene. Right there before his eyes laid a metal ladder and 3 electrocuted, expired men. And it didn't take the worker long to figure out what had just happened. You see, copper can be quite a lucrative thing to steal and resell. So when the 3 idiots noticed some copper wire hanging loose,
they touched it. Dumber dumbest. This might apply to these 3. They touched the wire. They touched it.
from a power line, they hatched a not-so-genius plan to acquire it. While 2 of them held on to the metal ladder, the other climbed up and chopped into the wire with cutting tools. And as you can probably imagine, it wasn't long until they realized the wire was in fact live. The Three Stooges went down like dominoes as they were pumped up with some 13,000 volts of electricity which traveled down the ladder, through the thieves, and into the ground.
Damn, these idiots are crispy.
Ouch. Needless to say that the workers certainly got to the bottom of where the smell and the smoke was coming from. That is, the fried, smoking criminals. Idiocy certainly does come with a price that must be paid. Deadly drunken dip. If I could share any advice, it's that nothing good can ever...
Yeah. Don't drink and swim. Don't drink and dive.
...come of being too drunk. I mean, I'm just having some traumatic flashbacks to the office Christmas party 2021. And yet, time and again, we see inebriated idiots getting up to the most reckless and even fatal shenanigans. Back in 2022, a 23-year-old guy and his spouse were enjoying some rounds of golf at a popular golf club in Queensland, Australia. Having sunk a few drinky-poos along the way, the boys, being boys, decided to dish out some drunken dares to one another.
There has not been a single French case. I'm surprised. I wouldn't call myself the smartest person in the world, but how is it possible to be these levels of retarded? That's a good question. I don't know. I think it's time to perform brain surgery.
It was then that our next Darwin Award nominee was dared to swim out to a fountain that was in the middle of one of the golf club's lakes, all the while being very intoxicated. Admittedly, it really wasn't far to swim nor very deep, but that didn't make much difference for our Darwin Award winner. As we all know, alcohol can severely impair one's judgment, reactions, and overall agility, so it's not massively surprising that this fella's dip in the lake resulted in him drowning. And you think you've had some bad hangovers? Remember, if you know of any Darwin Award worthy nominees, then please do let me know by either commenting on the video emailing stories@bmas.com, or my preferred option, carrier pigeon. Dropping the ball. Now, you and me, we know that hurricanes are very dangerous, and therefore we should stay inside when one is raging outside. However, in Jamaica in 2024, one soon-to-be Darwin Award winner decided to play soccer with his pals during Hurricane Beryl, a Category 5.
How, bro? Playing soccer, playing football in a hurricane is only that is stupid. That is genuinely stupid. Like you gotta be that definitely is. I think the worst thing you could do probably. They're probably worse than just being a storm hunter.
Hurricane, aka the most dangerous kind. What could possibly go wrong? As Hurricane Beryl did her worst, wreaking devastating havoc in parts of the US and the Caribbean, some dingbat and his friends grabbed a ball and headed out. To paraphrase the great Albert Einstein, the difference between stupidity and genius is that genius has its limits. Anyway, the fellas kicked off until their ball landed in a flooded gully. Proving Einstein right, Dumbo Prime exceeded science's previously understood limits of stupidity by going in after the ball to retrieve it.
This is levels of stupidity that are incomprehensible to the normal human brain. You cannot be this stupid to pull that off. No way. No way. No, nah, this can't be.
Pretty much no one's surprised the man was sucked into the gully's hurricane-driven currents, pulled under, and, well, you can imagine the rest. It took more than a week-long search to find him when he was eventually found bobbing along the sea. Never thought I'd actually have to say this, but folks, playing outdoor sports during a Category 5 hurricane is definitely a bad idea. Now that is a shocking revelation. Burger Buffoon.
What did he do? Salmonella. That's my prediction. Salmonella, because these look like that.
As we've seen throughout this series, there are many dumb and embarrassing ways to bow out. In 2024, some guy managed to activate death mode whilst cooking himself a burger using some frozen patties. Annoyingly, the icy patties were stuck together pretty firmly, struggling to pry them apart barehanded. Our hero made the bold decision to try using a sharp knife to separate them. Yeah, I'm sure you can probably see where this is going, as I'm sure we—
Those fingers are gone. That's my prediction. You're telling about stupidity, but I had to continue throwing trash during Hurricane Irma, or I would have lost my job. Whoever you worked for at that time is a piece of shit. I'm sorry.
We all know ice can be pretty slippery, so it's hardly surprising that when the man tried to aggressively jam his knife in, pointed towards himself,
He stabbed himself. He stabbed himself.
patty separated and the knife glided through beef and man alike. Being all alone, it wasn't long before the man met a similar fate to the cow, and he never did get to eat his burger. Headlock. Ever since being a child and watching Scooby-Doo, two things have stuck with me. The importance of criminals getting their comeuppance, and of course, Velma. Anyway, this next Darwin Award involved a criminal getting his just desserts on account of his mind-blowing stupidity. In 2024, an Indonesian thief was attempting to break into a residential building by prying the sturdily locked door open with a garden hoe. Using all his strength and all 7 of his brain cells, the fool still couldn't quite manage an entry. After some time, he managed to get it open just enough to somehow squeeze his head through. Why he chose to cram his cranium through, I'm not quite sure, but he did, and when he lost his grip and his method of wedging the door open suddenly failed, the result wasn't pretty. What I'm sure was intended to be a grand heist resulted in him being trapped by the neck while the rest of him dangled on the outside.
Bro got stuck in there. No way.
Side of the door. Needless to say, this wasn't a particularly healthy pose to strike, and unable to breathe, it was lights out for this brainless burglar. Though I guess this is the price you pay when you're a jerk who breaks into innocent people's homes. Darwin Award royalty. This next—
Wait, we're getting a, either is this the best one, or we're getting an actual king or prince or whatever dying in an embarrassing way.
The story was submitted by viewer Krishnavini Medida and inspired me to develop an entire section I'd like to call Darwin Award Royalty. You'll soon see why. Humayun was a Mughal emperor who ruled over India during the mid-16th century. His life story was one of epic proportions, and while his initial reign was ended when he was ousted and forced into exile, Humayun eventually managed to reclaim his throne and once again ruled what is today India and its surrounding lands. Though it was a short-lived victory. And while you might expect that he was once again overruled or even assassinated, the reality is he actually just tripped over his robe and fell down the staircase leading to his library.
He fell down a staircase leading to his library. Nah, dude. This is embarrassing. For royalty, that is extra embarrassing, right? I'd rather just die in the war. What is this? Or poisoned by my wife. I'd rather have that than this. God damn it, man.
One evening and died from the injuries. And that was the end of Humayun's story. Pun fully intended. So, what have we learned? Well, don't be a little nerd and read books. Nothing good can come from it. But as I
Reading kills, chat. Reading kills. Never read.
hinted at a little earlier, there's more to this section than just one story. King Bela I of Hungary ruled from 1060 until his untimely death at the age of 43 in the year 1063. How did he die, you might be wondering? Well, it wasn't through some noble war or even a deadly disease. He simply sat on his throne and it collapsed. Now granted,
What, bro? That is such a stupid way to die. Imagine you just sheer right. Is this the equivalent of like going to school, sitting on a chair, the chair just breaking? Is that the equivalent?
it was reportedly a very elaborate throne with a heavy wood canopy, which fell on top of him, causing grave injuries. But still, killed by a chair? Pretty lame, right? On to yet another embarrassing royal death, and King Alexander of Greece suffered perhaps one of the most humiliating deaths that a king could. That is, death by monkey. Yep, in
Death by monkey? Bro, he's getting killed by monkey. I'm back. I took a quick cat nap and now this. Yeah, people are dying in stupid ways here. Now monkey.
1920, the Greek royal was out walking his German shepherd dog on the grounds of his family palace when a macaque monkey belonging to one of the king's employees suddenly began to fight with the dog. The king attempted to separate the brawling beast, but that only made the monkey turn on him. In fact, another monkey, presumably the macaque's bestie, then joined in on the attack as they both clawed and bit at the king.
Beat by monkey. Beat by monkey.
Fortunately, the king initially survived the attack, hobbling away with severe bite wounds.
Bro got rabies from this. So this is a funny video. Yeah, it's odd and painful sometimes, because how can you be this stupid? Rabies.
On his leg and upper body, but within days he developed an infection in his leg which...
Or infection, yeah. Fun fact. If you have a bit too harsh of a bedtime sparring, and your girl or you bite each other, because you're for some odd reason into that, you better disinfect that spot, because human bites are in fact even more toxic than dog bites. The more you know.
Prompted doctors to consider amputation. However, no doctor was willing to bear responsibility for the risky mutilation of a royal. And well, over the following 23 days, the infection spread throughout the king's body, eventually causing his demise at the age of 27 years old. I have to say I'm pretty disheartened by this story, as up until now my perception of monkeys have been largely based on Curious George. Elsewhere in the Hall of Fame for dumbest royal deaths, we have King Charles VIII of France. Now, for the most part, King Charles was known to be pretty pleasant and likable, so much so he was dubbed Charles the Affable. But despite his popularity, some did criticize
Charles the Effable. Anyways, it's Alexander lame actually. Alexander from Greece.
his impatience and impulsivities, which arguably caused his demise. You see, one evening the king was so eager to go watch a game of tennis that he clumsily bashed his noggin on the doorframe on the way out. He was initially completely fine, went about watching the tennis match, even socialized with courtiers, until suddenly he collapsed comatose. 9 hours later, he permanently bowed out. While the specifics of the injury to his noggin have never been determined, it likely involved some trauma to his brain, possibly coupled with some pre-existing conditions. But at least he got to enjoy his final game of tennis. Gotta look on the bright.
Brain damage. These are also embarrassing. TLDR, it's just people dying in stupid ways. I can't give you the TLDR. There's so many people dying. One was killed by monkey while trying to save his dog. One fell down a staircase in his library. One touched the power the power thingies, the power lines with a camera on the stick, and so far and so on.
Side, folks. For another story of a royal who went out with a bang, I present to you the tale of King James II of Scotland. King James had access to some of the most powerful, sophisticated weapons of his time, and he didn't hesitate to use them. In fact, in 1460, he marched to the English-held fortress Roxburgh Castle with his siege cannons and a plot to claim it by force. However, the best-laid plans often go awry, and it turned out the king's cannon was faulty, which was a pretty common occurrence back then. It exploded, taking the nearby king with it. Boom.
That's not an embarrassing way to die. I mean, you could say, you know, you could argue that blowing yourself up is not the worst way, most embarrassing way. Still better than crawling into a chimney and then getting stuck.
Now our dive into Royal Darwin Award winners has teetered more on the side of irony and bad luck than actual acts of stupidity so far. But don't worry, if you want to hear stupidity, let me tell you the story of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang. This early emperor was obsessed with immortality, funneling countless resources into his quest to live forever. Heck, he even reportedly put out an executive order to search for a hearsay potion that would grant him eternal life. In his quest for immortality, it's believed that Qin consumed cinnabar, aka mercury sulfide, which we now know is highly poisonous.
He drank the ultimate cocktail.
This, along with likely a ton of other potentially toxic substances consumed throughout his life seeking magic immortality elixirs, is thought to have dramatically reduced his lifespan, and he died at just 39. Meaning his various antidotes to death very likely actually shortened his lifespan. Truly an error of royal proportions. Remember to comment or email me at...
I'm gonna email you, homie. All men have problems with their canon at some point. Degenerate. That was wild. That was a lot of dead people. And stupid people. I think my favorite is... Which one was my favorite? So either the flat earther from the beginning, because you can't be that stupid, or the three guys trying to steal copper, but then cutting a wire and getting grilled. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe.